Welcome to Sports Econ 101, the show where we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-hosts, FP Santangelo Jr., Vern Glenn, Russell Jackman, and when we come back, we're going to have a very, very special guest, Jim the Rookie Morris. If you remember the movie, The Rookie with Dennis Quaid, we have the real Jim Morris on. So we're going to ask him a lot of questions. It'll be kind of fun. We will also ask a sports trivia question at each commercial break, and the theme based on our guest is going to be baseball. All right, that'll be kind of fun. And then if we still have some time after our interview with Jim, we will talk a little baseball also about Japan versus USA. So we're recording the show on Tuesday, and I believe it is today that the game is being played. So we don't know what the outcome's going to be yet, but we'll talk about that. A little March Madness, a little Domantas Sabonis, who's putting up Chamberlain-like numbers for the Kings, and good old Roger Goodell. They can't pay that guy enough, and and then also find out what's going on with Lamar Jackson, and then anything else you guys want to talk about. Usually you guys pipe in when I'm doing this intro, but. Nothing to cricket. We hear crickets. You guys are just watching right now. All right. This segment of Sports Econ 101 is sponsored by Pacific Private Money, still providing mortgage investments yielding over 7% secured by real estate. And with what's going on in the banking crisis, holy smokes. It seems like real estate's about the only place that you can go to feel comfortable where your money's going to be at. Check them out at pacificprivatemoney.com. Stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. When we come back, we're going to start interviewing our special guest, Jim, quote, the Rookie Morris. Don't touch that dial.
Kids today would say, well, what's a dial?
Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Edward Brown here along with FP Santangelo Jr., Vern Glenn, Russell Jackman, and I'd like to introduce our special guest, Jim, quote, the Rookie Morris. Famous movie from the year 2002. Right, with Dennis Quaid playing Jim Morris. We have the real Jim Morris on. Jim, welcome to Sports Econ 101.
Thanks, Edward. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So we've had guests on who, like Lee Steinberg, for the Jerry Maguire movie. And I always start off with this question: how accurate was the portrayal?
It was about 85% accurate. And Dennis said, if you can get that out of Hollywood, take it and run. So we did.
Absolutely. Seriously.
Yeah, Quaid would know. Yeah.
Absolutely. So it's really funny. My dad played for the 2001 Oakland Athletics, and the Moneyball obviously is the big baseball movie now. But whenever that movie comes on, him and his buddies always start a group chat from that team and say how ridiculously false everything is. Just everything, A through Z. It's like so.
And hardly any mention of the three aces on that team.
No, it's not like they had the three best pitchers in baseball at the time. No, it was a miracle. It was a miracle. So it was really funny. So that's really reassuring to hear that they were pretty true to the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, Dennis said it as he was trying to get the part. There were a bunch of people who wanted to play me, and I was astonished at all those people. But he goes, if you see anything being filmed that you don't like, you tell me and it's out. And he was true to his word. So he was awesome. We're still friends today and chat back and forth. I know he's got Reagan coming out next month. And I look forward to seeing what kind of rendition that's going to be. But man, he was class act.
Well, the first thing I had to do was find a left-handed pitcher, right?
Well, not really. They were talking about having mirrors and throwing against a mirror or something and reversing it.
Oh,
because at first they were like, hey, maybe Kevin Costner. And I already been warned by all the Rays. They're like, if you let him do another baseball movie, we'll hunt you down.
Well, I think Dennis did a great job. I'll tell you, my favorite part of the movie is, and I love that. I actually really love that movie. It's really, it's all wholesome, and it's just a really good feel-good story. My favorite part is, throwing the baseball against the highway sign. Not against it, but Did that really happen?
No.
Hollywood, man. Hollywood.
Okay, and for the people out there who may or may not remember that part, don't say Dennis Quaid because he played the actor, right? He stops his truck. He's trying to think, gosh, can I really throw, enough for the big leagues? And he sees one of those highway signs that measures your miles per hour. He thinks, wait a minute, maybe I can throw a baseball and see how fast that'll go. And when he throws it, he only gets up to 75, but then as he leaves, the 7 turns magically into 9 because it had a bulb missing or something, you know. I tell you, that's still, whether it's true or not, that's a great part of the movie.
Well, what's funny about that is I drove by that sign every day. I taught science. I did not think, hey, if I throw a ball, maybe this thing will light up. Screenwriter did it, and Dennis loved it, and I'm like, well, okay, there you go. I threw against a radar sign.
Yeah.
I can confirm that as a kid that was 12 years old once, I threw a ball past a speeding radar in my neighborhood. It didn't work. It didn't register.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, this movie, it's lying.
I have a lot of friends who are DPS, or they're all retired now. They were all in DPS in Texas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Highway Patrol. And after I came back and quit, they got me, they all played softball together. I went out there and played with the tournament, and they're like, dude, do you know how many signs in this state are dented because of you?
That's really cool. That's awesome.
Oh, that's funny. I mean, you're not supposed to throw at the sign. You're supposed to throw, you know, didn't they watch the movie, or are they that bad in aim?
Well, you know what? Maybe most of them were left-handed and they didn't know where it was going. I don't know.
That's awesome. Jim, I have a question for you. So obviously a huge moment in your life is getting the call and going to the show, right?
Right.
How many, I'm curious, how many people reached out to you from when you got called up to the big leagues compared to when the movie came out?
People showed up. Johnny Oates was alive then. God rest his soul. He led 150 people in the game that day that had ties to me on my call up. And so there were people I went to college with, people who went to high school with me, my kids I hadn't seen in 3 months, my high school kids I hadn't seen, kids I coached against, but I made a promise, and their coaches got buses at 3 o'clock in the morning, drove to Arlington, 9 hours to be at the game. People who coached with me. I mean, all kinds of people showed up. The last count I had, there were over 10 million people at that ball game.
Wow.
Everybody's like, hey, I was at that game. And I'm like,
yeah. The famous old I was at that game, which is great though. I mean, you want that in a way.
It was great because you know what? It ended up being at a great time because we'd already filmed it, and then 9/11 happens. And then we have the premiere in New York. And while we were filming, Disney would come by Dennis and I every so often and go, hey, if you could have dinner with anybody you wanted to, who would it be? And we're just naming people. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. We get to the premiere and we have dinner at the 21 Club, and they have 21 Hall of Famers there to have dinner with us.
Wow.
And they had already seen the movie, and I didn't even know they had. And like, Willie Mays asked for my autograph. I'm like, what?
What? Wow.
And I was stunned. And so I'm like, well, can I have yours? And then there were those moments in time where you're just like, all I did was pitch 21 games in the big leagues. But it meant a lot because it put the story of baseball back out there after a big black eye and stuff that was going on back in the 90s. Yeah. And I think it was a good time. Disney was so worried that it was rated G and was wholesome. They sent Dennis and I on a tour around the country and in the Disney jet. And by the way, that doesn't suck. Okay. So we're flying to all these cities, including San Francisco and Oakland. And we would show up. This is where I found out that I'm good being a guy, right? Because 3:30 a.m. makeup call, I can't do that, man. I'm not getting up with makeup. And then you show up at the airport and you forgot to take your makeup off and everybody's looking. I'm like, whoa. But, you know, when my dad was in the military, we lived in the Bay Area and I watched Vita Blue. And so that's who you wanted to emulate when you were a kid, right? Vita Blue, Louis Tiant. I tried that for one pitch and that was it. Vita Blue is Vita Blue and Louis Tiant's Louis Tiant. And that's just how it is.
Well, that Louis Tiant trying to turn around, that's a whole different
animal. But then Vita Blue shows up at this deal where Dennis and I show up, introduce the movie, chat with people, and then people view the movie. And it was just awesome to get to meet people that I grew up watching who emulated everything I wanted to be when I was a kid and I wanted to be a baseball player. You know, people go, well, I don't like baseball, or I don't like football, or sports saved my life, man. My dad was in the military. It was rough everywhere we went. At 15, I was 6'1" and 120 pounds. So I got picked on. And I was one of the better athletes in Florida before I moved back to Texas. And it took a lot of friendships to help me get through the day, because I went to a very rough high school in Florida, and it was the athletes who saved me. And we're not talking about color, and we're not talking about language. We're talking about the athletes, no matter what color or what language they spoke, protected me because we're a team.
Yeah.
And that's why I've always liked sports, is because the team aspect, it doesn't matter. If you can do the job you're there to do, you're accepted. They may not like you, but they respect you because you can do what you're there to do.
Yeah.
Right. That's awesome. We're going to continue on when we come back from break. So here's our, excuse me, our first trivia question, talking baseball. And again, if you know the answer, don't say anything yet. All right. In the 2009 Hall of Fame, we're talking baseball again, 3 players were inducted: Jim Rice of the Red Sox, Joe Gordon of the Yankees, and which speedster who wore 13 uniforms at different times through his career? All right. Email Edward at sportsecon101.com the answer to that question. The 2009 Hall of Fame, 3 players were inducted: Jim Rice of the Red Sox. If I wanted to make the trivia question hard, I would have asked, name all 3 of them. Right?
Yeah. Right.
Okay, so Jim Rice of the Red Sox, Joe Gordon of the Yankees, and which speedster who wore 13 uniforms at different times throughout his career? Stay with us. Sports Econ 101. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Edward Brown here, along with FP Santangelo Jr., Vern Glenn, Russell Jackman, our special guest, Jim, quote, the rookie Morris. Is that okay if I introduce you that way, Jim?
Yeah, I'm kind of old to be a rookie, but okay.
From the famous movie, The Rookie. All right, our first trivia question. In the 2009 Baseball Hall of Fame, 3 players were inducted: Jim Rice of the Red Sox. I loved watching Jim Rice play. Joe Gordon of the Yankees, and which speedster who wore, in fact, I don't even remember Joe Gordon, but which speedster who wore 13 uniforms at different times throughout his carear? Anyone?
I'll take a wild guess. Ricky Henderson?
Yeah, Ricky Henderson. Yeah. I mean, I don't know who else wore 13 uniforms, you know. All right. So we are in the studio, we're on the Zoom studio with Jim, the rookie Morris, from the famous movie, The Rookie. We have the real one here rather than Dennis Quaid. It actually would have been kind of fun to get both of you on, you know.
It is fun when we tag team together. People love it. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. So, again, I still remember the movie. I hadn't seen it probably in 10 years, but I still remember a lot of it. Was the part about how the coach calls you in, you think you're going to get axed, and he says, not only, you know, you go in, but you get to bring in your colleague, your teammate, and you. Did that happen?
Yeah. Here's the deal. After the game, we got knocked out against the Charlotte White Sox, and whoever wins the game goes to AAA World Series. They kept us all together for a reason. We end up losing. It was 2-1 when I came in. It's 2-1 after Bobby came out. The season's over. We're going home. Bobby's from Texas, Bobby Munoz. I'm going to Texas. Here we go. The manager comes up and taps me on the shoulder. He goes, I need to talk to you. Now, I've been an athlete my entire life: football, basketball, track, all of it. When I wasn't doing that, I was coaching it. And so I've kind of got this sense of humor that some people might not get. And he taps me on the shoulder, and I look around the locker room, and I said, I don't think so. He goes, why? I said, the last 6 guys you talked to are all crying right now, and I choose not to cry. He just laughed. He's like, come on. And then he pulls me in, and he goes, you're going to be in Texas tomorrow. And I was stunned. And, you know, from my locker into his office, I processed all this, right? 6 months prior, I'm teaching in a classroom with 30 kids. I'm coaching 63 kids. And then now I'm going to the big leagues because of those kids at a time when I never would have tried it again. You know, at 28, I had a surgery in which they said, you will never, ever pitch again. We cut 85% of your deltoid out. Can't be done. And then you come back and you're not throwing 87 anymore. You come back at 35 when you should get out of baseball. You're throwing 98 to 102. And that just, I was stunned. The fact that those kids were hitting it stunned me even more. And I'm like, They were hitting that. No wonder we got knocked out against a guy who couldn't throw out of a wet paper bag. And we're out in front of everything. I'm like, geez, bump the ball, do something. They're just like whiffing. I'm like, okay, put somebody in that throws hard, please. But we were out. But because of those kids, when I pushed them, they pushed back, and we made each other better. Again, team. And I think our country could take a look at our sports programs across everything right now, especially the World Baseball Classic. Look how that's brought people together from all different types. And I love that, because now it's a worldwide thing, and people play everywhere. And people are getting the opportunity to play that may never have, you know, back when I played the first time, back in the early 80s, they said that the guys from South America, either here's a baseball, here's a gun. And so they wanted to play baseball. And they're like, you know what, we're great athletes, but you should see this other guy who chose not to play. And he was even better. I'm like, wow. But there's so much talent out there. I think no stone needs to be left unturned. We can find, it's not always the best talent that hits the field. It's the people with the heart.
You know, it's interesting. Basketball is kind of, it seems the same way. You hear these professional athletes who say, yeah, I was good, but you should have seen this guy on the court, you know, when I was playing pickup ball or whatever. And just for whatever reason, you know, it just didn't happen.
Yeah. It's rough.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, in an interview with me, told me that he could just pick guys like four other guys from, like, you know, Rucker Park when he was playing in New York, guys that you've never even heard of, and those guys would have just been ballers. But you know, life gets in the way; they go a different path, and they just never get discovered. And Jim, to your story there, in it doesn't matter how big a superstar there is in baseball, manager, whatever, they all remember the call-up story.
Yeah.
All of them, like yesterday, they remember it.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal for me. On the day I get called up, I have to sign my contract before I go in the clubhouse. They give me 10 days meal money, cash, which was more money than I made in a month and a half of teaching. And I thought I could get used to this. And I walk in, there's Wade Boggs, Jose Canseco, Fred McGriff, Roberto Hernandez. And then I'm out on the field for my first day in the big leagues, and I look up, and we're in a circle, and standing in front of me is Jose Canseco, standing next to me is Wade Boggs, on the other side is Roberto Hernandez, and next to him is Fred McGriff. I'm like, wow, this is totally different than being in a classroom 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And you can't even put it into words. And they're like, they asked Dennis, a bunch of people go, why did you take this story? He goes, because it was true. If they just made it up, it would be so farcical, you couldn't even begin to think about making it up. He goes, but it happened. And I knew when it happened, I wanted to play it. And I thought, wow.
That's awesome.
But getting back to the stories about traveling around, when I was 10 years old, we lived in Connecticut. My military all-star baseball team got to go watch the Red Sox and the Milwaukee Braves play. Who was on the Milwaukee Braves? Hank Aaron.
Yeah.
Hank Aaron signs a ball for all of us. And I remember sitting in the left field stands, looking down at the field going, if I could play on that field one day. Now, I was a kid, so if you've seen Sandlot, guess what happened to the ball?
Yeah.
We lived in Connecticut. It snowed a lot. We ran out of balls. I ran in. I go, I got one. It was ruined in 30 seconds. I'm closing, after the movie comes out, because of Russell Athletics and what Hank Aaron did for them, he and I closing bell of the stock market one day. And I'm telling you my story. And I am looking at an idol of mine because of what he went through, of things that we will never, ever understand, and yet could go out every single day and be the best at what he did. And that, to me, speaks volumes, because even just getting cursed out by a kid's a lot different than getting cursed out by 40,000 people at Yankee Stadium. Now, there were some creative people and there were some cool things, but there was also some things that if you're not strong-minded, you're going to get your feelings hurt pretty bad, and that's going to affect how you play. He never let that affect him. So I'm telling him the story, and I told him what I did with the ball, and he puts his arm around me, and he just starts laughing. And I thought, my idol has his arm around me. That is awesome. One of the nicest people I've ever met.
Yeah, I remember, I tried to take a picture of Al Downing, I think it was, pitching to him in '74, just thinking about how I mean, getting death threats? I mean, even of course Roger Maris got death threats too, but it's like, death threats for beating someone's, record. I mean, come on, what's this world coming to?
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Well,
I remember when I first started working in the Bay Area, a few years in, the Giants signed Barry Bonds, and he just happened to win the MVP the year before with the Pirates. So the next year happens, Bonds is in the Giants uniform, we're at Candlestick Park, and Hank Aaron is there to give him his MVP award. And for whatever reason, I happened to be working that day for my TV station, and I had to do a live shot from Candlestick, and my guest is Hank Aaron.
That's awesome.
And somewhere in the bowels of that TV station, the interview was lying around. But if you looked at it, I look all calm, cool, and collected interviewing Hank Aaron as he's telling me the hardest ball he ever hit was a Candlestick, and it never went out because it was open air and the wind blew it back. Right. But up on the inside, I'm jumping up and down. I'm like, hey, man, holy expletive. This is Hank Aaron.
This is baseball.
Yeah.
You did the same thing with Willie Mays too, didn't you?
Me?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's awesome. How could you do that?
Yeah.
Man, to be able to sit down and just talk to them and interview them and ask them their state of mind in different situations, that would mean the world to me, because holy smokes, man, that's history.
Yeah. Well, you'll appreciate this, Jim. My when I was 14 years old, my mom's great uncle told me about how he used to watch Hannes Wagner play.
Whoa.
Yeah. He goes, yeah, I grew up in Pittsburgh. We used to go and watch, we called him Hans Wagner. I think, gosh, I watched Hannes Wagner play. Yeah.
I know, right?
Yeah, when we were kids, I mean, everybody idolized Willie Mays. So if you got to pick a uniform number 24, that was the first thing you automatically picked. Yeah.
And you wanted somebody to hit the ball over your head so you could run and try to catch it over your head.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And usually got smoked in the back of the head trying to do that.
Yeah. Hey guys, going to get to our second trivia question here. Okay, so far you as a team, you guys are 1 for 1. All right, this one's a little harder. The American League this American League catcher won his 3rd batting crown in 2009 in only 6 seasons in the big leagues. Who was this? It's a little harder. And if you need a hint, I'll give you a hint when we get back. This American League catcher won his 3rd batting crown in 2009 in only, 6 seasons in the big leagues. Who was this catcher? All right. Stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. One more time, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with FP Santangelo Jr., Vern Glenn, Russell Jack, and our special guest, Jim, quote, the Rookie Morris. All right, our second trivia question. This American League catcher won his 3rd batting title. Thank you, FP, for correcting me. Not crown, as in triple crown, in 2009, in only 6 seasons in the big leagues. Who was this catcher? Anyone?
Bud Rodriguez?
No? Anyone?
Joe Mauer. Joe Mauer.
Joe Mauer. Yes.
Joe Mauer. Okay.
Joe Mauer. Very good. All right. Excellent. So our special guest, Jim, the Rookie Morris, I'm just trying to think of, like, I only know you from the movie, right? So that's all everyone has to kind of go.
You seem like a pretty good guy though outside of the movie. Let's just put it that way.
Well,
you seem like a really, really down to earth, awesome dude. Like, this has been a fantastic conversation we've had with you.
Well, I appreciate it. I will tell you one other thing that I got to do when I was watching Hank Aaron play at 10. I also watched Carlton Fisk.
Mm-hmm.
When I was with the White Sox for a short period before I got pneumonia and hurt my arm, I pitched to Carlton Fisk on the sidelines. And so being 10 and watching the man and then being able to pitch to him was amazing. And, watching the Big Red Machine and everybody back in the 70s and being able to do it in person was just, baseball has seen us through a lot in this country. Mm. And I wanted to keep that reputation and opening it up worldwide. I mean, look at Shohei Ohtani and Trout going head to head for the World Baseball Classic title. That is a fitting ending for a great tournament.
Oh my goodness. And can we expand on that a little bit? It's going to break the records today. They're estimating more than 70 million people are going to watch that game. That's more than the 1980 World Series, which broke the original record, by the way. 50 million people watching. So this is absolutely incredible. My question to pretty much everybody here is, do you think the World Baseball Classic is going to be more meaningful than a World Series one day?
I think it has the potential to be.
Sure.
Yeah.
As the game becomes even more worldwide, of course. Yeah.
Now, do you think they'll expand the final to, rather than just a one-game elimination, maybe they'll do like best 2 out of 3 or something?
I think they'll keep the World Cup format because it's been uber successful so far, but I'd love to see more countries involved. And I think we'll get to that point eventually as the game expands.
Absolutely.
Not to sound like one of those get off my lawn guys, but I'd like to see a series, because to me, a series really shows you who the best team is.
Mm.
Shows you depth.
Yeah, that one game, or just kind of, again, it depends on also who gets hurt. That's
right.
That's a big thing.
Well, Jim, I have so many questions. I mean, I know the show, Edward kind of drives the bus, so I just kind of like jump in whenever I can. But I am curious on the left-handers today. Just give me 2 or 3 where you just like, from how they go about their business, prepare, delivery, whatever, professionalism. Just who do you like out there among the left-handed pitchers on the bump?
There's so many young, talented guys that I just like to sit back and watch. There was a lefty yesterday, and I thought, that guy looks like he's filthy, and he ends up getting ripped. And I'm like, whoa, okay. And a lot of it has to do with just, like, I go back to heart and head, and guys who can overcome something. Like you go up and you give up a double off the top of the wall, and immediately you're in a bunch. But the calm guy is the one who goes, I'll just get a double play, whatever. and then rolls it over. But Nestor had a great year last year. I don't know that that's repeatable, but he's tough-minded, so maybe it is. And there are some kids in the West Coast that I absolutely love. And you're going to ask me names, and every time everybody asks me names, that's why all my kids in the classroom were sir and ma'am. I just love watching. Okay, this is a oxymoron here a little bit. I don't like travel ball to the extent that it's being played, because I've coached kids who have, by the time I got them for Baseball America's tournament, have played 140 games in a year at 15. That's ridiculous to me. But then because of travel ball and all the competition, these kids not only know each other and grow up with each other, but they end up being incredibly talented. And so it's the good and bad of it. I think it's too many games. And yet on the other hand, for those that come through it, they've pretty much wiped out, I'm just going to play because I love the game. I don't plan on going anywhere. This is going to pay for school. This is going to pay me eventually. That's the mindset they go in with now, instead of it just being a love for the game.
Doesn't happen very often, Jim, but there's more and more of these 2-position players that emerge. And when I think of that, how in awe should we be of Shohei Ohtani and what he's been doing?
Yeah.
You know what? He's got a teammate right now in Japan. That guy is pretty talented too. But what he's done, I don't understand having the mindset of a starting pitcher. And then, oh, by the way, I'm going to hit for myself too, whether we're in the American League or National League ballpark. And, oh, when I'm done with this, I'm going to play in the field. That, because the guys get sore or they have their routines and they want to keep it the same, they don't open themselves up to that very much. And it's like me when I went to junior college, right? They took me there to be a pitcher, and the UT was going to get me a year later at this junior college. And it never worked. I wanted to play the outfield, right? Because I can hit. All pitchers can hit. Well, the first ball hit to me in right field. We had a 30-foot tall fence in right field. I went back on this pop-up. Ellis Sparks is playing center field. The ball hits the metal wall, hits me in the back of the head, and sometime in between the inning, a bee had gotten in my glove, and it stung me on my middle finger as I got hit in the back of the head with the ball. So now I'm
That's a
embarrassed.
sign.
And our junior college coach calls timeout, and I see him walking out, and I just hear Ellis laughing, and I'm like, oh no. I turn around, and Jack, our coach, has a full set of catcher's gear, and he comes out and he sets it on the ground, and he goes, if you want to stay in the outfield, this is for you.
Wow. Wow.
I'm a pitcher.
I love junior college. I played junior college baseball too, and the stories, man, oh my goodness. It's baseball at its best, I think, because it's very competitive. Guys are trying to fight for something, but the things that happen are just crazy like that. Like
Absolutely. Take people snipe hunting.
Yeah, like it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I got a good story to tell you off air because I can't tell it on air.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
You know, he's always got a lot of stories to tell off air. Yeah. You know, it's interesting you mentioned about the travel ball because it's amazing what it does to the parents. I mean, you know, we almost did not only the money side of it, but just the time involved. And, you know, because my daughter played softball, and she was a very good softball player, good third baseman. And it's probably the genetics of my wife's side. Her dad played for a little bit for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and her mom was a big time ballerina in New York. She had a good combination, you know. So then we kind of looked into doing travel ball, and I said, and I mean, she loves softball, but not enough to do. She goes, Dad, this isn't going to work out for you or me, you know. So you know, but for those parents who really can invest in it, it's just.
Well, here's the thing. If you have talent, if you play in 10 games a year, somebody's going to find you. They found me in Brownwood. We didn't even have high school baseball. Major League Baseball will find you if you have the talent. NFL will find you if you have the talent. Basketball will find you if you have the talent. You don't have to play 200 games a season for somebody to see you. I don't understand the wear and tear on young people's bodies when they're not fully developed yet.
The best summer of baseball I ever played, and I'm 28 years old now, so this was about 10 years ago, was American Legion. I played American Legion, and it was the best. And one of our pitchers actually got drafted by the Detroit Tigers from American Legion. So you can still play American Legion baseball. You just pay rent for your uniform, and you represent your area code. I highly recommend that to anybody that's looking to play baseball because the talent's really still out there. It's really awesome.
Yeah, you know, you mentioned, Jim, about, you know, travel ball and 15-year-olds playing 140 games. And it just reminds me that, you know, I had a couple of friends who, one guy was actually drafted by the White Sox, but, you know, he threw his arm out in, you know, he's throwing in the high 80s at 17 years old. And, you know, and the coach, unfortunately, you know, but I think I don't know if coaches have changed, but back then it was like, we got to win. I mean, I want you to pitch every day, you know, if possible.
Right.
And it's just bad.
And when you're a kid, your knuckles can be dragging the ground, and the coach looks at you and go, "You ready?" "Yep, I can throw."
Yeah. Wow.
That's crazy. Wow. It's a different time now. I mean, I was talking to some college coaches, and they're recruiting kids that are 13 years old now. Like big time schools. Big time schools. It just crazy stuff.
Shoe contracts for 10-year-olds.
Yeah.
So Jim, because again, you got back in the big league, you know, later on in your life, how were you able to take care of your body?
Oh man. See, that's the funny part. That's what got me out of baseball.
Yeah.
You guys ready for a story?
Yeah.
Sure. We got a couple of minutes. Go ahead.
In 2001, I was with the Dodgers. Jim Tracy brought me in. Frank Jobe signed off on me. He goes, "I don't know what you got up there, but you throw hard. If you figure it out, tell me I'll be rich." And I'm like, "You are rich." And, you know, I got to meet Sandy Koufax during that spring training and hang out with him. And I have to tell you, he's kind of big, not as compared to today's athletes who are all like, I'm a 6'9" pitcher, but Sandy was a big man. His fingers went halfway up my forearm when I shook his hand.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, no wonder you could pull on it like that.
Yeah.
But I went from LA throwing, running, lifting, and hitting every day. And in 5 days, going from there to Florida, where they still had spring training, I couldn't play catch. When a guy would throw the ball back at me, I was petrified. When we did bunting drills, I couldn't bunt. The guys were tossing it underhand to me, and I couldn't make contact. I taught this. And 5 days ago, I could do it. I end up getting scared. I thought if I throw the ball up there, like as hard as I throw, when somebody hits it back at me like Stanton harder, I'm done. It's going to hit me in the mouth.
Wow.
And I quit over the next 15 years, 80 surgeries, ended up being diagnosed with Parkinson's. And so this was all starting as I was playing. Early onset Parkinson's, they said from too many concussions. And the next 15 years were just misery. But I got to play the game I loved. They made a movie out of it, which there's no way I can play. There's no way they're making a movie. I thought comedy, maybe. Okay. If John Candy was still alive when I weighed that back in the beginning, that would have been it. But
wow,
it was a rough time. But I will tell you now, I do not have Parkinson's anymore. They've done their nuclear test on my brain. They took the implant out, and I'm good.
Good for you. Well, Jim Morris, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. We'll definitely have to have you on again. We're going to cut to our last trivia question here. See if you guys know this one. The great Willie Mays left baseball in 1973 after 22 seasons with many awards. How many Rookie of the Year awards did he win? That's our trivia question. Stay with us. Sports Econ 101 will be right back with some closing comments. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with FP Santangelo Jr. of Burns Glen, Russell Jackman, our special guest, Jim Morris. Okay, third trivia question. The great Willie Mays left baseball in 1973 after 22 seasons with many awards. How many Rookie of the Awards did he win? Anyone?
One?
Yeah. Sort of a trick question. Yeah. You can only win one. 1954, of course. Yeah. You can't win more than one. I thought maybe I'd catch someone going, thinking it was more like an MVP type thing.
Oh no!
Isn't that funny? And he only wins one World Series, and that was it against the Braves. They were 4-0. They were not favored. Well, Jim Morris, it's been an absolute pleasure. Stay with us. Here's our thoughts for the day. You guys ready? So my dog accidentally ate a whole bag of Scrabble tiles, so I took him to the vet. No word yet.
I got that.
Okay, one more. And my
dad
son
jokes.
Yeah, my dad jokes, exactly. My son asked me what it was like to be married. I told him to leave me alone. When he did, I said, "Why are you ignoring me?" And for those of us who were married, you'll get it. All right. Tune in next week to Sports Econ 101. We're going to be discussing sports topics from a business perspective and asking more sports trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Edward Brown. We'll see you next week.
Good night, America.
So long.